The unexpected turns that led to a Titan, a very catchy title tricking you to show up to a talk about a 21-year-old game from a 27-year-old company. So, my name is Bergur Finnbogason. People call me Bergur, like hamburgers, so I'm fine with that. I'm the creative director of EVE Online. And that's what I'm here to talk about. So, EVE Online is a science fiction, massively multiplayer, online role-playing game. Set 21,000 in the future in the universe of New Eden. The game originally came out in 2003, and just to kind of give people a bit of a frame of reference, this is actually from 2001, or one of our first builds of the game. Just to give people a tiny bit of a frame of reference on what 2003 looked like. The min spec for EVE Online when it first came out was Windows XP, and you only had to have a 56.6 kilobit modem to play the game. But what is this space game that I'm talking about? EVE Online is a sandbox game, meaning that we basically, as CCP, we develop tools for the sandbox. We create tools for people to build their own sandcastles. The game loop is relatively simple. You gather resources to build bigger equipment, to claim better space, so you can gather better resources. And then we create all sorts of shortcuts to sidestep this journey, that being the market, grouping mechanism, that can lead to very strong friendships and communities. Players actually group together into fleets, and these fleets group together into corporations, and corporations group together into alliances. And the biggest alliances in the game are, have tens of thousands of people. I think the biggest alliance right now is like somewhere around 46,000 people. All player-driven, all managed by players, and they all want the same thing that can lead to pretty epic battles filled with emotions and drama and beautiful things. These battles oftentimes, make it onto popular media news sites. I guess it's like regular news. I don't know what the right word for this is. Where people see massive fights in EVE Online, and it freaks out Americans usually that don't understand that spaceships are real. As a company, this is our mission. We create virtual worlds more meaningful than real life. For me, this does not mean that we're trying, this is not necessarily a kind of a Ready Player One type mission where we're trying to extract you from this side of reality into games. This more means that we take real life as our main reference for our game. Like EVE Online, wars in EVE Online are fought because of, the 7 capital sins. It's about gluttony and greed rather than just big spaceships. And our mission as a company is vision as a company is to have EVE outlive us all and live forever. But EVE Online, 20 years old. How is it still relevant? How are we still innovating in it? I'm an architect by trade. I trained as an architect and worked as an architect before gaming actually saved me. And in many ways, EVE Online is like this beautiful old house here in downtown Reykjavik, Austurstræti 22. This house is built in 1802, and like most houses on popular streets, it kind of evolves over time with new needs and new differences. Over time, the windows have been swapped out. It's served as a family house. It's served as a shop. At some point, it gets a bit too cocky and becomes a super hip and cool 90s bar, and kind of loses its origin a bit. Then it goes a bit too far and becomes a flaming pile of garbage. That forces people to look inwards and kind of do renovations and maybe find the core. And even if this house has gone through all these changes, the chimney is still the same as it was in 1802. So the core is still the same, the DNA still remains. And even if this looks like the original old house, this isn't really an old house. It just kind of looks like it. It's actually brand new. It fulfills all the needs of kind of a modern house. It has wheelchair access, it's up to spec when it comes to fire code, proper space between tables and things like that. And EVE Online is very similar in many ways. Like the game that came out in 2003 looks very different from the game that people are playing today, but the essence, the core of the game still remains the same. Kind of, the dark, gritty space that's constantly trying to kill you and the beautiful friendships it creates. All these changes are driven by need, problems that call for creative solutions or innovation. And over the years, people have managed to scale up fleets from a handful of people to thousands of people shooting each other in the face all the time. And our current record is actually just above 12,000 people shooting each other in the face, which is quite impossible, but we somehow managed to do it. But our biggest challenge today is that we're really, really, really good at killing new players. We're actually spectacularly good at killing new players. And that means that we have a very hard time retaining them. And to give you an illustrated example, this is week 3 of 2019. We had 21,000 people registering to play the game. Around 10,000 people actually managed to log in. Day one, we had 2,800 people still playing, and by day 30 or day 90, it's kind of minuscule. So in the first 7 days, we're actually killing 90% of our new players, or were in 2019. Right now, there is way too much volatility in the game, and there's way too much volatility in the game until people start to form really meaningful social bonds. And even if complexity can be good, there is also a lot of bad complexity. There's a lot of just fix the stupid and stop the bleeding type issues. But it's also, you can't blame everything on complexity. There's also a lot of just unintuitive features, introductions to features. We had very uninspiring first minutes of play, like the first impression was pretty bad. And there's just a lot of plain, good old stupid stuff, like inconsistent buttons, text, and things like that. And it's oftentimes we say that EVE Online is like the most awesome hotel you find, but the lobby is filled with shit, so people never experience the amazing hotel that we have. So, shoveling shit. But a fair question is, why should we be investing in new players when we have a very loyal fan base and a really engaged community? And it's pretty simple, because more players equals more content that equals more fun. The game is all about its players, so we really want to make sure there's plenty of people to befriend or to shoot in the face. And this is the only way. This is the way for us to make sure that we will actually last forever. But this is a very hard problem. It's extremely hard to teach players how to play EVE Online. If you ever tried, and you've probably churned out a couple of times, most people, they don't really find their EVE Online spirit until second or third time trying. And we've actually tried the whole spectrum. We've tried all sorts of things. We've gone the pendulum has swung extremely dramatically throughout the years. Like we've gone from, doing things at your own pace, at your own leisure. This is a version from 2015, a new player experience version from 2015. Very Spartan, very uninspiring. Then we swung the pendulum all the way to a railed content, really epic, 3 hours of hand-holding, which basically resulted in us postponing the fact that the game was difficult and complex to learn. We just pushed it back 3 hours. Pendulum swung back in 2018 to learn at your own pace. But and slowly we found a healthy balance between the two, where we're allowing people to learn at their own pace, but be a bit inspiring. So Bergur, are you saying that CCP has been failing for 26 years, and now my aides are people back home in Iceland are really happy because I'm going to say no? We've been learning for 26 years. So everything you do, we're always constantly adding tools to our toolbox. But even if you have these tools, you have to learn how to yield them, and you have to practice, and you have to be very focused on kind of trying to get these learnings, make these tools kind of part of your day-to-day job, and that's just really tricky. It's super easy to say that you're a data-driven learning organization, but it's also just a lot of fun getting a great idea and just do it, which we do a lot. So we've actually had to, part of this kind of journey in getting new players to stick, we've actually had to look a lot inwards as a company. Surviving lifespan of a game, oftentimes we talk about that lifespan of a game is around 5 years if you're successful, so 20 is quite amazing. So yeah, we've had to go through a big mental shift as a company. Like many startups, to start with, you don't have a lot to show for. So the focus moves to you as an individual, as a developer, rather than the product that you're making. So in many ways, you end up selling yourself rather than the game that you're creating. Yeah, you become the main product to attract talent. But as you have more to show for, the product will start to talk for itself, and ultimately, because content is king. You can be super lucky and talented and all the things, and land on something that works. But as the light starts to dim and does start to settle, the kinks start to show. And previous assumptions, like this actual marketing statement that we ran for a couple of years, start to crumble. If you don't have what it takes, then Eve isn't for you. It's not a great way to sell your game. Trust me, don't do it. So we actually had to kind of go into our cryo chamber and look inwards and ask really fundamental questions, like, why in the world do people play EVE Online? Sounds like an obvious question, but it's actually a question we didn't really ask ourselves until maybe 2017, 2018. And in all honesty, we didn't really know shit. We had a lot of assumptions when it came to our game. One assumption, for instance, was the fact that we thought that EVE Online was all about PvP, and everyone just wanted to do PvP, and PvE was just kind of a phase people would go through before going into the real game of shooting each other in the face. But the reality of things is that over 90% of sessions in EVE are actually PvE focused, and most of them are actually single-player PvE focused. And this actually led us to investing way more in pulling lore closer to the core of the game, and creating more content, investing a lot in people and tools. Another assumption that we had as a studio was that this famous kind of idea that EVE is a super dark, backstabbing universe and you can't trust anyone in the game. But when we start to really survey our players and look at our players, we notice that most of our players identify themselves as helpers. And we've seen this, of course, we had seen this through charity drives and auctions, that people really loved to help when the need came. But we also noticed, like we were talking about yesterday, our players really loved when they can contribute to science, and we've had millions upon millions of contributions to the 3 product discoveries, citizen science projects we've had. We also realized that 73% of EVE players claim that they have made new friends as of playing the game. And this actually, after we learned this in 2018, 2019, this actually became one of our kind of core missions as a studio, and one of our guiding principles is to dive deeper into and try to understand better why people actually make friends in this dark, gritty, evil universe. Why is this important? Because loneliness is actually becoming one of the biggest epidemics in the world. And the World Health Organization is actually this is a huge focus for the World Health Organization. So we've kind of taken this on as a mission to end loneliness. Yay! Part of that is part of like trying to understand friendships and loneliness. Resulted in us hiring a really cool developer, a strategist that was working for the Icelandic main prosecutor. He was prosecuting the Icelandic bankers that collapsed Iceland, and before that he was with the CIA, actually infiltrating criminal organizations. And the CIA has a super interesting formula to infiltrate crime organizations, which is basically, to create good friendship, you need proximity plus frequency plus duration plus intensity. So proximity is basically how close we are. Frequency is how often we meet. Duration is, of course, just the length of time we spend together. And intensity, intensity kind of speaks for itself. And to create kind of good friends, you need around, 20 hours or 200 hours maybe of, I think it's 20 hours to make, okay friends, and best friends is like 200 hours of time you need to spend together. But games have this beautiful thing where we can actually mess a lot with this intensity thing. So you can kind of think about the fact that, we're all here together, hanging out, we don't kind of know each other. You kind of know me a bit more now after these 21 minutes of me babbling. But if a bus would drive through the wall here, big explosions and stuff, the intensity would go through the roof. And I think these 200 hours, I think we would all be kind of best friends after that super dramatic moment. And this is a dial that we can turn quite easily. Okay. Oops, forgot to show these slides. This is the core that makes EVE Online the friendship machine, as we call it. All right. Back to the shit in lobby. New player retention, problem for a long time. It's super hard. The thing is, we have talked about this, the new player experience, for a very long time, and like the early onboarding for a very long time. And we've thrown a lot of people and money at the problem. But we had never really thrown the company at the problem. Usually, we kind of it's new player experience. It's kind of boring. No one really wants to work on it. You want to create new cool features. That's way more fun. But after learning these things and really kind of getting the whole company thinking about friendships and thinking about friendships, we decided to double down and really focus on the thing. Because it isn't a single team's problem, it's actually everyone's problem. Because no epic story will ever fix shitty UI, just like shitty, amazing UI will never replace a good story. So, we know that creating strong social bonds drive retention through the roof. If a player is invited to a fleet with an older player, dies, and that older player tells him why he died, the likelihood of that new player sticking 100-folds. This is actually what we call a magic moment. But to get this moment, we need to teach players the core competencies. We need to give players a sense of purpose, a sense of pride and meaning, and a feeling that they're contributing to something greater and something more meaningful, and ideally to a player organization. And ultimately, give people more control and ownership of their experience of the game. We're well on the way there, but we're not there yet. We still have a lot of holy cows and pink elephants, from horrible UI to better celebration to many things. But it's not done when we ship it, it's done when we say it's done. Because we need to learn and iterate, and we need to have honest and hard conversations about our game, because that ultimately makes the world even better. But the most important thing is to have fun, because sad people make sad products, and that's somehow how I think we will last forever. So thank you for listening to my talk. If you're interested to learn more, go to this awesome website. That's what HR told me to put here. And I think we have a couple of minutes for questions.
That's right. Thank you for this inspirational talk. We have some time for one quick question. So, who was first?
Thank you a lot for your presentation. It was very interesting. I kind of tried EVE Online, but yeah, I was one of the players who dropped it second day.
It's okay, it's okay.
Yeah, so I just, so after that, I actually turned to another, this kind of game that's Albion Online. Probably you could heard about it. So I just wanted to ask you, so there are some similarity points with those games. So how do you deal with such with such games that are similar to yours? So do you play them? Do you try them? Do you learn from them? Maybe some ideas or what?
When you work in the sausage factory, like sausages are not the nicest thing to eat, to be honest. No, I try to play most games that come out. Especially, I love games that are like the more similar there to EVE, the happier I am. Like I celebrate all sci-fi in the world. Funny thing about Albion Online, one of our senior designers actually left CCP and joined Albion, so that's a part of the reason why there are so many similarities there. The industry is small, and the sandbox MMO genre is even smaller. But yeah, we take a lot of inspiration from other games. It's oftentimes, it can be a bit daunting developing for an established game like EVE. So when you see something fresh, something new, like you see ideas that you've been kind of, you've been wanting to try out for years. So that's yeah. So I take inspiration from a lot of games. Right now, there's a lot of Factorio. That's my current drug of choice. But yeah, definitely that's cool games.
All right, thank you. I'm afraid we have no more time for more questions. So please give a big round of applause for Bergur.
Woo! Thank you.